The second season of The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt lands on Netflix tomorrow. I'm very excited. The show is created by Tina Fey, and it stars Ellie Kemper, who plays a survivor of a doomsday cult who's finding her way in New York City. Stephen, I'll start with you. Let's take stock of the first season. It was nominated for 7 Emmys, including Best Comedy Series. It was praised for its writing.
Yeah.
What do you think of season 1?
Well, Tina Fey is like the tightest writer in television, I think. Certainly in television comedy. I mean, she just has this unbelievable lack of waste. It's very economical, very definitive. I mean, I thought it was a great show, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. In the tradition of 30 Rock, a very odd kind of oddball, cheesy, naive comedy, which was intentionally cheesy and naive, but also had this real kind of darkness to it, and was able to make jokes about really upsetting things because
Jokes. Perfectly written jokes.
Perfectly written jokes. Well, I did a thing where I went through all the invisible humor in there, where if you freeze frame it, you'll see like a computer screen, and on that computer screen will be written hilarious jokes. But you have to actually stop your computer to see it, right?
Amazing.
And there's hundreds of those jokes through there. So it's very, very intense writing. And I think season 2 is really the same. I mean, it is. She says it's funnier. I'm not really convinced, but it is definitely unbelievably thorough television.
Thorough and dense.
Yeah, dense, incredibly dense.
Emily, Kimmy was held captive in a bunker for years. It's hard to deal with trauma in a comedic way. To what extent do you think the show pulls it off?
I think that's the best part of the show, is that we have a lot of understanding of these narratives about abduction through these tabloid stories, and then to turn to Kimmy Schmidt and have this super positive, like, bubblegum person. As soon as she, like, gets out, they have to go, or she's abducted with 3 other women by this, like, John Hamm plays the Reverend, who's this pseudo-religious,
Reverend Gary.
Yes, very, like, strange man who's abused them for years. And they break out and they're found, and they go on the Today Show, and then Kimmy escapes from the van that they were going to send them back to Indiana in, and decides to make it in New York. And the first thing she does to make it in New York is buy a pair of glittery sneakers. Like, that is an amazing joke.
Right.
That her whole thing is this sort of girlishly empowered, we're going to make it work, it's fine. And they do a really good job of tracing that arc. Later in the season, there's the joke about how she tries to teach this other woman who is also a prisoner of her own circumstance, her boss played by Jane Krakowski, and she has this thing where she says, oh, the thing I used to do is just jump up and down and say, I'm not really here. And then, of course, the reveal is that everyone is always really here. Like, life has stakes, and they manage it in a way that's both funny and meaningful. And you don't get to see that very often.
Well, we're all fanning out here, but this show has had some criticism, especially around the way it handles race. For example, when rich housewife Jacqueline reveals her Native American heritage. She's played by Jane Krakowski, who is not Indigenous, and Jacqueline is ashamed of being Native American and has tried to conceal where she came from. Rachel, what did you make of that storyline?
Yeah, it was troubling because, like everyone else here, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I think so. I think that Ellie Kemper did an amazing job, representing someone who was a trauma survivor. Titus Burgess, who plays Titus Andromedon, is like by far one of the most amazing Black gay characters ever, and it's such a smart, fully inhabited character. And then there's a clunk when it comes to some of the other characters of color. So, I think that there is. I think you can pretty much mine anything for humor, but I think you have to earn the ability to mine it sometimes. And so I think that Titus Burgess, for instance, there are all kinds of stereotypes that he plays into, but they feel real earned and they feel real, and he feels like a recognizable kind of character in this wacky kind of show. I think sticking, the Native American parents in and having this be a plot line, that you could do that. I just don't think it was well earned and came across as thoughtful. And I think the same thing happened with an Asian character that Kimmy Schmidt ends up having a relationship with. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, the humor felt really cheap as opposed to deeply informed. And so I think that that's the stuff where I feel like the show, and it's hard because the show is so great in so many ways, and yet it felt like Tina Fey is smart enough that she could have earned the humor there, and then just didn't work hard enough or develop the characters enough to kind of earn the way that they were portrayed.
In the new season, Titus Andromedon plays a geisha in a one-man show from his past life. And then there's a group called, I'm not sure I've got it right, but it's Respectful Asian Portrayals in Entertainment, R-A-P-E, who then protest it, and then they are moved by his song, and then they say, Titus's great line is, I made their top 5 Hitler list. Hitler wasn't even on the list. and then one of the protesters, who's transracial, i.e. white, then disappears in a cloud, a white flash of his own outrage. But I think, what this is actually like, the thing that's also interesting about the show is that this season is the only show, straight white men have no presence on this show.
In season 2.
In season 2. They are, like, the previous show had Gary and it had what's-her-name's husband, right? It was anti-patriarchal comedy. This is post-patriarchal. So there's like actually no there's a boy toy for 2 minutes in one, and there's at no point is there any serious straight white male character, which I think actually is new. I don't think that's happened in a show that isn't specifically about a community, right? That isn't like the L Word or one of those shows, right?
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Emily, to what happened in season 1 with Jacqueline's storyline with Kimmy's boyfriend Dong, do you think the criticisms are fair?
I think they are fair, and I think Rachel's right. It's because the jokes weren't there. Like, they weren't built, they weren't developed. I'm excited and nervous about what Steven's saying about season 2. Yeah. Tina Fey has this history, she did it on 30 Rock lots of times, of addressing her detractors in her shows in ways that are just like, ha-ha, and like that can work. But I'm a little nervous about seeing how she does it, especially with the Dong character. I feel like that guy got ripped off in this storyline in many, many ways. He literally like slept in the restaurant he worked in. He rode a bike because he was a bicycle delivery guy. And his name was Dong. Yeah. And he's a Vietnamese American character. And like there was like an immigration plot line. And it just felt so deeply unearned, especially because in the rare moments when Kimmy and Dong are together, it seemed legit. Like they seemed to have a real connection. So you knew it was possible.
Well, and again, I think that like Titus Burgess can go there because that's who he is. And I think that he is reflective of a particular type.
Well, that character is also who he is.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Dong
what I mean.
Character. So why isn't his
but I don't know that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know that actor had the
he
same
has
kind
no
of
agency?
input. No, I don't. But I don't think he has the input in writing, like developing that character in that kind of way.
Why would Titus then too?
Because I think he was a more like a higher ranked actor in this show. I mean, I think it's I think there's also a difference too. If you have a landscape where you have like a million roles for Native Americans in television or a million roles for Vietnamese people in television, I think you can kind of play with stereotypes in a different kind of way. But when the only Native Americans who show up is Jane Krakowski, a white, I think that there are those things where it feels like punching down as opposed to punching up.